Hello and welcome to today's GovMates Institute, Polaris. It's go time, and go time it certainly is. For those of you who have joined us for an institute before, welcome back. If this is your first institute with us, we'll bring you up to speed on how we do things shortly. This is a follow-up institute to one we held back in March. So we've done a Polaris one before, but we have a lot more information this time. And we expect Polaris to drop sometime this December, potentially. We'll get into that. But I am Meg Kearns, the Director of Engagement and Marketing for GovMates, and I'll be monitoring the chat and the Q&A so that our speakers can focus on your questions and the information they have to share with us today. To get us comfortable and set up for today's discussion, I would like to provide a few participation reminders to ensure your best experience. So a quick note on this one, we do expect today's discussion to be full of information and we encourage your questions. As such, we may go slightly over the hour we have allotted, but the time will be well spent, we promise. But go ahead and remove those distractions. We're going to keep this panel moving, so silence your phone, close down those 8 tabs open on your devices, and try to stay out of your email if you can. We also encourage you to be active in the chat. You should see a Q&A button along the bottom, as well as a chat box to the bottom right of your screen. If you'll give that chat box a test run, we would appreciate it. So first in the drop down above the text box, choose all panelists and attendees or everyone, depending on what version of Zoom you're using. Otherwise, only I'm going to be able to see your comments. You can also take this time to share your digital business card in the chat box, your name, your email, company name, should people in the audience want to connect with you post-event. Finally, there will be a replay. We'll send it over to the email address that you used to register once it processes post-event. And this is where I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator for today's discussion, Stephanie Alexander. Stephanie is the co-founder of GovMates, and she will be taking the reins to introduce and guide our panelists through the conversation and your questions. So thank you, Stephanie, for bringing us all together today, and I'm going to throw it right over to you.
Hey, hello, GovMate Nation. We are happy to have you here. We're excited to chat about this. Okay, I'm excited mainly because I plan on throwing a couple bombs and letting the professionals and the experts see what settles in. I recognize it's lunchtime, hopefully, and a Monday. So hopefully you've all handled all the emails, had all the status calls, and are munching on a good sandwich or a salad or whatever as you're listening to us. Please, please, please put in any questions throughout. We plan on answering as many as possible, recognizing that this is a hot topic. There's many things to get to. If this is your first day hearing the word Polaris, probably not the webinar for you. That we're going into this with a basic understanding that everyone's at least read the RFP, read the draft, read the stuff. And my goal out of this is to A, keep you at least engaged and not multitasking too much, but B, more importantly, to be able to make a really solid go, no-go decision, and or if it's a go, what your teaming strategy and or some winning kind of themes that you can incorporate into your bid is. So hopefully this is a really, really great use of an hour of your time. And heck, man, it was free, so it can't be that bad. All right, let's get us started. First and foremost, Ton Wilson, who are you and what makes you an expert in your field?
Thanks, Stephanie. I'm sitting here with like some major GovCon giants, so I don't know if I'm an expert, but all right. President of Intellect, we do BD capture and proposal support. I've actually sat in a lot of these seats that everyone's on this call with. I've walked in your shoes. I've done everything from active BD capture to proposal. So I like to call myself as a practitioner with over 20 years of experience in the GovCon field, full BD lifecycle support. I'm Shipley trained as well as one of their consultants, and I advocate a repeatable Shipley process in what we do. So at Intellect, we do a lot of the BD capture and proposal support as well as contract and compliance risks. And executive coaching, and we're very process focused on very clear roles and responsibilities in what we do. We've supported every GWAC as well as best in class contract vehicles out there, and we've won all of them except for my white elephant that I like to call, which is the VA T4. And so again, that's my only black mark. But again, that one was a hard one to win. But in any case, we do scorecards. We do scorecards often. We do them well, and we do them from very small businesses to large businesses. So I'm happy to be here and give the unfiltered version from the strategy perspective.
Absolutely. And we want candid responses. You know, we expect nothing less when it comes to GovMates. And sorry for T4, the one that got away. All right, Sai Alba, one of my favorite lawyers, and I can say that in all genuineness, which, let's face it, folks, we don't say that very often when we talk about our legal counsels. Sorry, Sai, it's a thing. Who are you and what makes you an expert in your field?
Yeah, so I'm Sai Alba. I'm a partner with POLARIS. I'm in our government contracts group. POLARIS has been around for a while now, 30, 40 years, something like that, helping mostly government contractors through all kinds of legal issues. I've been with the firm for about 15 years. I was practicing for a few years before that. So I've been doing government contracts law for almost 20 years now. And it's been a great ride as all these best-in-class vehicles come up. We've obviously been monitoring them really carefully because they're a big deal to a lot of our clients, as many of our clients tend to be small to mid-sized companies that are all bidding on these kinds of things. So like I said, been doing this for a while, and whether it's analyzing what these things mean, dealing with the small business issues, protesting, God forbid, all of that kind of stuff, we've been doing that, and I've been doing that for many years. So happy to be here and happy to learn and share.
The question is have you recovered from CIOSP4? That's the real question.
No.
For everybody who's still taking a pause. All right, finally, last but absolutely not least, a heavyweight in his own right, Martin Hicks. Who are you and what makes you an expert in your field?
Thank you, Stephanie. Good afternoon, everybody. Look forward to spending the next hour with you. Again, my name is Martin Hicks. I'm the VP and Director of Proposal Development with Global Services. We are a GSA schedule and federal proposal management firm going on almost 25 years. I have been managing federal proposals for a little over 20 years and have been working with Global Services exclusively during that time. And throughout the course of working with small businesses and large businesses, we have submitted over 8,000 proposals, and we maintain roughly around between 70 and 75% win rate. Kind of moves around depending on what's going on and what activities we're dealing with. And these scorecard proposals, we have been very involved with them since they first came out with the very first Oasis iteration, and then with Alliant and Alliance 2 and Oasis recompetes, as well as the Vets 2 and the more recent Astro procurements, all of which we have supported and won for our clients. They're an interesting tool. I actually kind of like them. They're very kind of straightforward, but they are a compliance Tetris, and that's what we specialize in and help our clients move and navigate through. So looking forward to talking with you all today about that. I'm not going to mention CIOSP4 because I don't want anyone to relive that nightmare. But we'll look forward to POLARIS because I think it'll be a much better venture for all of us.
All right, so some of this might be a little bit of therapy for those who are on that one. We're going to step aside, new vision, new stuff, guys. Come on, forward thinking, positivity. All right, Meg, first, can we get rid of the slide so we can talk one-on-one with everybody? Here we are. All right, so now I can see everybody better. Thank you. Okay, so part of this is really like, let's get straight to the poop. Let's go. Tom, who should not?
Triggered.
Right? I'm
a little triggered from Martin.
Right, I know. We all are in GovCon, right? Like, and here's how you know that like we're experts, which really just means we're old and we've spent way too much time doing this shit. That's what I took away from our conversation already. And how many proposals and how many things? And I'm like, yeah, we all have PTSD. All right. So get us started. Who should not be going after this bid? Who is it? Like, who can we get off this webinar and be like, we're saving you the rest of your lunch. We're saving you G&A. We're saving you bid and proposal money. Go find another opportunity.
I don't even know where to start with like who should not versus who should, right? It's like, I speak with small businesses all the time, and they're new to, they're new to GovCon, and they're like, oh, I think I need to get on this Polaris, or they hear all these buzzwords and, like all these GWACs and BICs get so much, like name recognition. And I think who should not is like those who have or suffer from FOMO, right? It's like the fear of missing out. And I talk about FOMO all the time. And it causes like a lot of trauma with companies who are like, oh my God, I got to bid this. It's like, I got to get on every vehicle. And like, my first question to them is like, okay, so what is your business development or capture strategy for these vehicles, right? So like getting on some of those vehicles aren't hard, especially like scorecards wise, because it's qual based, or like if it's, any contract besides Polaris. It's not hard getting on these vehicles. It's winning opportunities from this vehicle. So that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is just because you get on a vehicle does not mean that you're guaranteed any minimum amount of work. It doesn't mean, like the contract ceiling, you're going to get awarded. You still have to compete. And for things like Polaris, you're competing with a much larger like subsect of like companies. And so when they're like, oh, well, I think I can qualify, or I think this is what our number is. And for those of you who are putting your questions in the chat box and stuff, don't ask what the magical cut line number is, okay? Because I'm not going to give you a number. I may give you, like what my betting number is, because for those of you who know me and those who follow me know, I'm Asian. I will bet on anything that's not nailed down or anything that walks, okay? So I will put out bets out there. I will put out bets out there for what the magic cut line is, but I'm not going to do it on this call, so don't ask. However, if you are small, and if you have not read this proposal or this draft solicitation, or you can't spell Polaris, or you don't know what a GWAC is, or you have no prime contracts or have no subcontracts, you don't have any of the certifications as far as the quality certs, if you don't have any of those, then I'd be like, peace out, sit it out, wait to find out who gets awarded and come on board later, okay? Like you can do that from a strategy perspective. You can still get contracts on these GWACs and on these BICs without having a prime yourself, okay? First of all, it's cheaper, okay? You don't have to prime this thing, okay? This is an expensive prospect, and you got a maintenance, there's maintenance behind there, and then there's a lot of BD capture behind it. So if you don't have the resources to fully market this vehicle, if you don't have everything that I've already told you, like one of my colleagues likes to say, there's a difference between qualifying for a contract and winning a contract. And so those are things that we're going to dive into later when Martin starts talking about like the logistics behind the, like all the requirements behind this. But these vehicles are really well suited for the matures. And I know small businesses are like, it's a small business, like how can we compete if we don't have the vehicle? You can compete without the vehicle. You just have to do it in a more creative way. But the truth of it all is that if you can't compete against your peers, if you can't compete against the larger smalls, if you can't compete against the mid tiers, then this is not for you. This is for those who are very well established, those who have a footprint, and those who are going to grow into it. And this one in particular is very IT, emerging technology, and cyber based. Okay, so like understand the different vehicles, what their focused are, and who buys from them. So again, don't waste your time and don't call me to talk about strategy if you haven't even read the RFP, because that's going to be the first question I ask you.
Well, if you haven't, I think takeaways, right? Like if you haven't already been hunting this, if you're not doing the emergency, like if you're butts and seats IT provider, save your G&A, join in at the end, get on somebody else's team. It's fine. And it'll save your bid for another one that's more relevant.
Spend your money somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, spend your money, just not here. Right. So, all right, Martin, over to you. We've had draft after draft after draft, appreciated, I think, and seems to be whittling down on certain things and yet opening up for other things, STVOSBs being one of them, etc. So can you get all in? Let's get into it. Tell me more about the technical response. Tell me more about the scorecard. Tell me things that have you worried. Tell me things that you think are like, gotchas. Tell me where you spend your time, your energy, all your stuff. And we are going to start answering some questions too and get wonky, but I want Martin to get real technical on us real quick. I know that's a real world word. And then Sai, you're not out of this. You're not here just to look pretty. you're here to tell us how we can reduce risk and what the teaming strategy. And what I mean by that is are we JVing? Are we mentor project? Like, what does that look like for us? Martin, hit it.
Great. So Polaris first came out in draft early 2001. And obviously there was lots of review and reaction to it. And I think at that point we started talking about it. We had a GovMate session back, I think it was back in April, to talk about this vehicle. So, that was the time to start really getting serious about Polaris. And I think that reiterates back what Ton and Stephanie are saying. You've got to have already started potentially thinking about teaming strategies and potentially thinking about what you have in your arsenal in terms of your past performance and the work that you do in order to set you up properly for this particular proposal. GSA was pretty silent over the summer, a couple of postings on Interact, and then in September provided us an updated version of Section L and Section M, along with the actual scorecard with numbers on it. And that's when things got serious, because we got to see how GSA clarified the original draft to its latest version. And they've had an industry day, a question and answer session, and they're still accepting questions. If you go to the Interact site, you can still submit questions on the draft. So we're all still doing that as clarification questions continue to come up. But this proposal, as I said, it is a compliance Tetris. It is about fitting in what you have or the team that you build has in terms of past performance, the quality and the size and scope of that past performance. It needs to be very specific to IT and those IT NAICS codes, because this is an IT GWAC. It is not, engineering or those things that would be on OASIS. So that's the kind of company or team that we're going to be looking for. And that technical volume is made up from a minimum of 3, a maximum of 5 relevant experience projects. Let's face it, this is about maximizing points. So everyone's going to put in 5 projects. And those projects, we're looking at those projects just to see the diversity of what you do, as well as the depth and breadth of what you do. Because I think the theory behind that is that if you have a strong deep bench of projects, that they've got good size and scope on them, that you can be a successful IDIQ partner with GSA. So we're looking at these projects. Those projects are going to be assigned point values, better point values. Obviously, if they're larger in dollar value, they're going to get point values if that's actual prime work in very specific things such as multiple federal customers or OCONUS work or cost reimbursement work. You can still submit work as your subcontractor projects, but there are going to be a subset of those projects that only get points if it's work that you have done as a prime. So again, it really reiterates that we're looking for people who are companies that have got work, they have prime contracts, they've got some sophistication behind how they manage contracts and success in the government environment. Once you move out of those technical projects, they're looking at emerging technologies. There are 6 buckets of emerging technologies, and you can present up to 3 projects on emerging technologies. Now, those projects can come from your original 5 that you submit, or they can be 3 additional projects, but they have to be very clear to those emerging technologies. Then there's a past performance based on satisfactory or better of those 5 relevant experience projects that you put forward. And then we move into those certifications such as ISO, CMI, having approved purchasing systems, and facility clearances. And so having those items get you additional points. You'll see that there's some administrative components, sort of some pass-fail components that are in the proposal, and financial responsibility components. And then there are those risk mitigation or risk management volume or components. And I know that's getting a lot of attention because if you are putting forward this proposal right now, there is a set of risk points specific to whether or not the team you put together, so if you're putting forward a CTA, whether that team has worked together in the past. And so you will get a set of points if the team you put forward has been teaming partners that have subbed for you in the past, or if you're a JV, you've worked together in the past with projects and so forth. And you'll have to show that through teaming agreements on the projects in which that work was done. There is also, for the 3 individual pools, the woman-owned small business pool, the hub zone pool, and the service-disabled veteran-owned pool, the limitation on subcontracting points that would be added, provided that those, going back to those 5 relevant experience projects, at least 3, because you need to be 50%, are coming from a similar situated entity on your team, either you or another member of your team that's similarly situated. So that is sort of the new piece to this proposal that we didn't see in OASIS, or that we didn't see in Astro and so forth, but it's something that everybody in the small businesses community is thinking about, because it's going to affect how you team. It's going to make teaming a little more difficult, because at the end of the day, you have to maximize points. That is what this proposal is, and that's the game we're playing here.
Okay, I'm going to pause there. That was a lot for everybody. That's right. Get some water. Okay. Here's what I think I heard. Keep me on the straight and narrow here. Not for our startups. You only been in business a couple of years, peace out on this one, join later. Actually geared towards, in my opinion, seems like those that have been in business a hot minute, who have had priming opportunities, who have past performance on priming. So in my head, 20 to 30, $35 million companies is who seems best positioned for this. If you cross over that hurdle, then you've got the emerging tech. Right. So doing all the key buzzwords, anything key buzzword, like that's where they want to see your past performance at. Do I have that right, Martin? Ton, tell me.
Yeah, so it's not to say that you can't come in if you're a smaller business, like, and it all comes down to teaming, which, Sai is going to tackle next for us. Is the strategy behind this is that, like, my rule of thumb is it's always best to go in alone, right? Like, go in prime alone. The more levels of teaming, or the more complex teaming arrangements that you have, it just introduces like more risk and potentially lower scores for if you don't have a relationship, with that teaming partner. And Martin brought up like a really good point about, like previous experience with a teaming partner from a risk perspective. The reason why the government does that, and I know small businesses don't like to hear this, is that there's 2 ways for you to team. You can either team for convenience, or you team from a strategic perspective. The government wants a strategic teaming relationship. They want something that's proven. They want as low risk as possible. If you're just bringing someone on in a hot minute because they're sexy or they fill a role,
right,
that only gets you so far. And that's very transparent. It's going to be very obvious. And that's not what the government's looking for. And that's why they're throwing in a lot of these obstacles and a lot of these roadblocks, from that strategy perspective. So going alone, if you can, is always the best choice, knowing that most will create either a JV, a CTA, or a subcontracting agreement, under the 2 different fall clauses. But, like, besides that, you're just introducing more and more risk and more complexity in your response if you do that.
Okay, great transition. JV, CTA, subcontract, all the things that in my mind, okay, yay, all the same, recognizing they're not the same. Sai, what do we do with this? What are we doing?
Yeah, and
what are our options, and why would we choose pros, cons to each, kind of what you're thinking?
That's where I think I would say it's great to go to. I think it depends on your goals, right? If you're trying to not have something that's so complex and maybe maximize points, if you are a really strong business, you could do it by yourself, then great. I think the complexity is probably the main issue. But if you're thinking like longer term and you're trying to strategize as a small business, and let's say you want to maximize your time as a small business, that's where doing things as a joint venture really benefits you, because then you only take on the percentage of revenues flowing through that JV commensurate with the work you did. So if you're a SDVOSB and you're with your mentor, let's say, and you're in this joint venture and you do 40% of the work of the JV, and there's all these complicated, performance of work rules I won't necessarily get into right now. But if you're doing 40% of the work of the JV, you only take 40% of the total revenues on the contract, right? So you can stay small longer by doing that. And that's a main driver, I think, for small businesses to put these things together, aside from being able to slap teams together. But like what everyone said, the issue here, I think the biggest risk is the risk assessment factor. And what does that really mean? And I've had people suggest things like, and I'll kind of start with that and go back to the main question. But the thing with some of the risk factors is, well, if I'm proposing as a prime with subcontractors, can I right now just take little pieces and start issuing subcontracts to the people who I'm teaming with and give everyone $1,000 subcontract today, and then turn around and bid and be like, look, we're an established team.
Okay, so that was totally my question, is like, I can invoice this out, right? Like I can put some paper together. Can't we just do something? It's November. I got a month. I'll give you $1,000 or two or three. And for those of you, so can we do that?
That has come up a number of times, and there's nothing that expressly like prohibits that, but I can say from the language in the RFP and what they're going to look at, the agency GSA would have a very strong argument, I think, if they just deducted your points and then you tried to argue with them about, no, this doesn't say you can't, it doesn't have a dollar value or anything like that on it. That's the kind of thing where I think you'd lose. You'd lose that protest because
in the protest.
It's reasonable, right? I don't see how you argue that it's unreasonable for them to make that determination. So
you mean the government might see through my little trick here?
Your ruse?
What? My ruse?
That's where I think it's one of those things like too cute by half, which I've seen a lot of with these things, especially with all these point scores, people trying to game things. It might not. At the same time, it could get through and it could work, but I think that's probably a higher risk than
So
otherwise.
I'm gonna
throw
like
in some Squid Game references here, please. I'm on it. Go.
Okay, let's play the Marvel game a little bit here. Okay, I got a couple of Marvels, Stephanie, and you've got some too.
I'm here for it.
Okay, so so here's the thing. It is gaming, right? And it's a fine line that you walk in that gaming, because some of the things that you're saying in jest a little bit, Stephanie, I know that it is a little bit in jest, are some very common like approaches that businesses have used. I've seen it used. I've gone in and I've said, hey, listen, if it's far enough out, if far enough out for Polaris or for Big Mac or for like some of these ones that are really far out, that there are going to be these limitations or these issues that you have, address them now. Okay, so that's like a business strategy that you need to make. Okay, those are like business investments that you need to make. Not to bring back some, like PTSD moments on SB4, but there were a lot of train wrecks on SB4 that we knew ahead of time that small businesses and mid-tier businesses in general did not prepare for, right? So why leave quality certs on the table? Why leave other things on the table if you know that they're going to be there? Invest in those things right now, and or create those JVs right now. If you know that that's the only way that you're going to be able to be competitive, that you're going to be able to score the maximum number of points, you can do those now. Don't wait until they're finally released, okay? Like, especially like if you've got good relationships for these, as I recommend, these more mature mid-tier companies, you have teaming relationships already in place. No company, unless you have a spectacular, set of quals, services, or like investment or, product, has gotten to the size of being competitive, has done it alone. You've done it on the backs of someone else, or you've done it on the coattails of someone else. And so you know, I don't think that it should be surprising when it's finally released that you're complaining that you can't score all you need, and then you're scrambling to like put all these things together, and then you're like asking Cy at the 11th hour, can't I just form a JV? I need I need like like all these numbers, and and so, like, no, you can't. You should have done this before. But it is a fine line, but it's something you should seriously consider. You know what I mean? Like, is making some strategic subcontracts now. You do it when you're flipping, when like 8As were graduating, right? You're graduating out of your 8A contract, you find another 8A to flip your contract with. That's a common practice. This is not anything different. And it establishes that relationship. It's that strategy that I always say that, like, what's your story in the proposal, right? If this were like a proposal and you're trying to like, write why us, why our team in a normal IDV type of contract, you'd be like, oh, well, we've established and we have these years of working relationship. We're not a team of convenience. We're not a team that's just been cobbled together, because the government is not stupid, people. You like to think that they are, and industry likes to talk down on them, but they're not stupid.
They see through your ruse. I can't help it. 10 seconds. Martin, how many of these things did we talk about back in April? We're like, get your damn accounting system. First off, read the scorecard. Secondly, the accounting system, the ISO, the CMMI, all of that you could have had, right? Like, get it. Check. Easy points, easy to do. You've had more than enough time. Get your act together.
I mean, we're saying a lot of the same things. And I mean, there's a reason the government puts a draft out for them. They're doing it for their market research and to educate and to get feedback. But it should be the starting point for you, if you're really serious about this, to start laying the groundwork for how you're going to do it. And obviously that was back at the beginning of the year. Some people could have easily gotten some of their certifications under their belt by now. And obviously they could have done, obviously people are, performed the appropriate type of teaming. May not have committed to anything, but at least kind of knew where they were headed with their teaming and gotten some soft commitments ready to go.
Thank you. All right, Cy, back over to you.
Yeah. What I'd say too with this risk thing in particular, not that you can't try it, right? If you want to issue some subcontracts, you have some work right now. Obviously, I think it's a spectrum. The more work you give and the more like on point it is, the better it's going to be for you to tell that story. But if you want to take a bet, right, take a gamble and try to push some of this, and you can afford to lose that money, then great, why not, right? I mean, if you look at CIS before, the best example of this is where or at least the ones I came across, was the historically Black colleges and universities. Like that point scoring system in the draft of the RFP, it didn't give any guidance. Right? It wasn't entirely clear that what they meant there is you were doing IT work for the school, right? And that kind of evolved over time. But at the beginning, it just said like supporting, or I forget what it said, but it was very broad. The exact language was pretty broad. So people were setting up scholarship funds and doing all this stuff, which is great for society. Now, that being said, people were doing it specifically to get points. And when they changed it with the final RFP, everyone lost that. And so some people were doing, 10 grand, which for most companies, if you're bidding on this stuff is, okay, fine, you lose it, or you chalk it up, you're helping society. But if you're doing something big, or if you're like, I'm going to give $500,000 or whatever, right? And you can't afford to lose that, that's a problem, right? Yeah. That's a problem. And so same thing here. If you're capable of doing these things, and it might not work out, they might tweak this language, and then you're out of luck. But if you can afford to lose it, why not? Right?
No, I agree.
Why not get out in front of it?
All right, I have a question for you guys that's relevant to this. For the risk assessment factor on subcontractors, what if multiple subcontractors have worked together, but not specifically with the prime? So I guess everybody's frenemies, we all work together, but not specifically with the prime. Would the government look at that situation as working together from a risk perspective, since it's within the team? Ooh, nuanced.
I don't think so, because it all comes down to the prime.
It all comes back to the prime, right? That's my gut too. I mean,
they specifically say when they're talking about prime sub relationships, and that they define 4 different ways, but when they talk about prime sub, that they say that that they were a subcontract to the offerer. So it's very clear there. Now that might change in the Q&A. This is why you should be submitting questions to GSA. They may change these things. These are some areas where they can make some changes or some clarity around the margins that I think they're looking to get feedback on. But as it's written right now, it's specific that it would be a subcontract to the offerer. So you have to be a former subcontractor.
Yeah, I agree with Martin on that one. And think about it this way: the prime is like the spoke in this wheel, right? Like everything comes from the prime. Everything starts with the prime offerer in this. And we have to say prime offerer to distinguish between a prime contract versus a subcontract, because you can use subcontractor information and relevant experience, past performances in those volumes. The only 2 volumes that you cannot use subcontractor would be volumes 4 for the certs and systems and clearances, as well as the financials. Those 2 volumes, 4 and 6, need to come from the prime. And Martin can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but for the most part, like, here's the thing though, is that it's great that you can show that, and I see where they're kind of going with that. But like, strategy wise, like, why are we teaming? What are you going to get out of that team to help you score higher, right? So it's a scorecard. Right. It's all about scoring higher. It's not to make your proposal look great. It's not to like whatever. It's like, you got to prove it, type of thing within the constraints of the solicitation. But remember that one thing though is one reference, one pool, one proposal, or you're disqualified. So, be really careful when you're teaming, that you have that clear understanding that who you're teaming with, that you can trust, they're not shopping that reference somewhere else, because GSA is not going to care that you have an agreement that you're only going to use that one reference for your proposal, but then your subcontractor is turning around and using it on someone else's proposal in the same pool. You're both, I don't know, Sai, what the ruling on that, but I would assume that they can't tell who it has the right of use. They're just going to disqualify both of them if you've used them twice. So there's a whole compliance.
Good question. So if I'm playing the field, because I'm a sub and I'm allowed to do so, and I just want to team up with anybody and everybody, because let's face it, it's a revenue grab. And I need my bonus at the end of the year, and I want to tell everybody that I helped win. Oasis, Sai, am I automatically disqualifying all the people that I played with if I'm using the same singular reference for past performance and point grabbing?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it would be reasonable to pick one from the government side to pick one. I think what you need to do is make sure your agreements are crystal clear, right? That this.
All right. How do I lock this down then? How do I lock this down? Is this part of my teaming agreement? Is this part of what is this for me?
If you're doing a prime sub, it would be part of your teaming agreement, and I think that would be an enforceable provision because it's pre-award. If you're talking about a joint venture, then you have to put it in your joint venture agreement, like what everybody is doing. And probably the most important, you want to have a good indemnification, and do not use the BS boilerplate language that says there are no consequential damages, right?
There should be damages.
There are, right? And if you have that, but this is coming up all the time for us right now. If you have some language in there that says there are no consequential special damages, no one's responsible, everyone covers their own costs, then if there's a breach of that, you could sue and you could win, but you're going to win $1. So what's the point, right? You've just eviscerated all the penalties for breaching. And then in that sort of circumstance, there's something called beneficial breach, which is you breach a contract to get a better deal somewhere else. And there's nothing illegal. You're not going to jail for that, right? You're going to get sued. And if your agreement eviscerates the damages, then sue me. I don't care. I might not even respond. You can sue
That's a
me. I'm not
hell
going
of
to
a
respond.
strategy.
You're going to
That's
get,
a
you're
hell
not,
of a strategy.
and don't even call a lawyer. Don't spend any money. Get a default judgment against you. And then when they go on something, there's no damage. That exact thing might not work. I don't talk to my
Right.
litigators about if the enforceability of the damages is like would be zero in that case, or very, very little. So you
Oh my
need
God,
to have good
everyone, are
agreements.
you listening to that? And are you pulling
I
out
love that.
from SharePoint
Yep.
your agreement right now? Because I mean, you need to lock down these teams. This is my key takeaway, Si. Thank you. And Todd, yeah, like who's to say there aren't bad actors out there who are like same past performance, everybody's team.
Well,
Sure.
you know, my whole thing, you know, Ronald Reagan, God love him, trust but verify, right? Like
Trust but verify.
I will trust everything that you say, but I will verify the hell out of it. But how do you verify some of that information? You have to trust it. And my second recourse is make sure it's an ironclad type of, you know, like an agreement. So like I don't team unless I see a teaming agreement. I don't team and unless the agreement is in my favor that I'm protected. And for something like this is like, that's serious. You know what I mean? Like you've got an entire 10-year contract that's on the line with someone that is like not trustworthy. And so like, you know, there's a list of people who have, you know, gone to these industry days. There's people like, you know, I get solicited all the time. Like, do you know you can get a GSE schedule? Hey, we're looking for
Oh
a
my
teaming
God.
partner for this. I'm just like, oh, come on, people. Seriously. Like, do you know who I am? Do you know what I do? Like, it's no, I don't need a GSA
You know
schedule.
who I am, people. Come on.
Yes, I know what the government does. Yes, I know I can sell to the government. I just choose not to.
Well,
but,
I think it's 2 degrees of Kevin Bacon, i.e. 2 degrees of government contracting. We all know each other. We all compete against each other. We're all on the same teams. We're all frenemies in some way. You do this type of dirty deed and it will come out.
I
And then
know,
maybe
but
at least
I would
10
not want your bid to be the one who's on the
to be
line
the
and
one
you
that
get
learned
shut
this
out.
lesson.
Yes.
Exactly. All right, we've got a another question that's come in, and I need to start paying attention to questions and timing. Sorry, I'm so like into the discussion. Are we correct that only small businesses can be subcontractors?
With the exception, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say for like point stuff, but go ahead, Martin.
Yeah,
Martin, what were you saying?
my understanding under the CTA is that all of your partners would have to be small business. The exception would be the mentor protege JV. Obviously, the mentor would be a large business or a medium-sized business.
Okay, so stop talking. Nobody cares about the bigs, as they shouldn't. This is a small business set aside, unless you're in the mentor protege. I think I see another one.
Even then, though, if you're in mentor protege and you're a prime, you're the protege priming. The way it's written right now, and I think this is probably going to change, but the way it's written right now, you wouldn't be able to use your mentor. It's only if you're in a joint venture that you can use all joint venture members. And which is, I guess, another, I've seen a few questions. A broader point is, unlike CIOSP 4, Polaris clarified that CTA really is joint venture or prime sub. This whole idea of a partnership doesn't make any sense in the small business context in particular. I mean, I've seen a few large businesses, but you don't have the same rules, right? And when you get, if you form a joint venture or let's say you form this partnership, like we're not a joint venture, we're not prime sub, we're a partnership. And then you get size protested, SBA is not going to understand what the hell that is. There's two things.
Is it a thing? It's not a thing.
No, it's if you just you come together as a general partnership. First of all, you're all liable for everything, which is not great. It's a general partnership. But second of all, you just form a joint venture. It's just a partnership, legal form of a partnership instead of legal form of an LLC or a corporation or whatever. A corporation would be really dumb, double taxation. But if there's different things that you could do, right? And it's just the same thing. And it specifically says you got to follow 13 CFR 125.8. And it says you have to be in SAM and you have to have a DUNS number, right? So there's no benefit. Get your LLC. If you haven't formed your LLC, do it right now, today. As soon as you hang up, go form an LLC. It's $250 or however much it costs in your state. Form the LLC and get it in SAM. And hopefully you have members of your team already, or you're probably like we said
Right.
earlier, problems. But if you don't have a team, in theory, you could form an LLC today, populated at the 11th hour with all your team members, and at least you'd qualify. You just have to do the joint venture agreement. So
Okay,
I think
good
it's
strategy. One more question I think I have, and then I actually have to look at the Q&As. Do you think a CTA can be established to combine past performance qualifications?
a CTA to perform.
I think the person's asking the question, can you use a CTA member?
I don't know. Whoever asked this, please clarify.
Yeah.
Come back to us. Clarify a little bit more. We need some more around it, I think. Do we know if all JV members will be required to have CMMI certification? Anyone know?
So
I know I changed topics on you there.
yeah,
Sorry.
you did.
Yeah.
So
I totally
CMMI,
went sideways.
CMMI is part of the certs, Martin, right? Like that's
Right.
prime only.
Right. Yeah. So it would be the primary. So the way I read it at the moment, and they may change it for those certifications, the ISO, the CMMI, the approved accounting or purchasing systems and so forth, the offeror must hold that. So if it's a prime sub relationship, it's the prime.
It's the prime.
If it's a JV, and mentor protege JV is what I tend to think about. I guess you can obviously establish other types of JVs. It is specific. Either JV partner could have the certification in a JV.
Certifications.
And then the other area that you get points for in that certification section is for the facility clearance. And in the facility clearance area, it's slightly different. In the facility clearance, the offeror must hold it. Or if it's a JV, the JV itself must hold it. Or if it's a JV and the JV does not hold it, both partners of the JV must hold it in order for that to count. So that one is a little carved out differently than the other certifications, but that is how it is currently. It's really about the offerer. And the offer being the prime or the offer being the JV itself.
Okay. I think to clarify,
and the partner.
First of all, the FCL thing arguably violates the new SBA rules from last year. So that's something to just keep an eye on. But also the JV rules, where is this? This is L5131, says that it has to be the joint venture itself or in the name of every member of the joint venture. So I think I kind of read that as being and this is similar to other things in this RFP, like the lowest common denominator. So if you're talking about CMMI level 1 and somebody's got 3, somebody's got 2, another person has 3 and somebody has 1, I think you're stuck at 1 for that joint venture.
So it's the lowest, to your point. All right, can we take a step back? And I want to throw a little, because I have opinions on this, the due date or the drop date. Can we talk about the drop date for a second?
Sure.
So,
what do you want to say about the drop date?
I have opinions. So, Sai, when we were on a prep call just 5 minutes ago, which I can't remember, I don't know, last week, it was a million years ago. It was a lifetime ago. You had mentioned that you had attended something that there was a Govy speaking. And I think what everyone is kind of hearing is the December 21st date. Has anyone heard any new rumors with regards to December 21st? And or Sai, do you want to share what you had heard on this specific thing?
Yeah, I'll just say the thing I heard last time was everybody, or not everybody, a number of people were complaining they didn't want to ruin the holidays or vacation, people were saying, and please wait till after the turn of the year, right? Well, what the government said is, if we do that, we're not extending whatever magical date they have in their head for when proposals are due. So you're just going to get less time, right? And so if they drop it on December 21st or sometime like that, you're going to have the same amount of time as if they waited. So why wait? I think they should just drop it.
Good for them.
Yeah. And then don't do it, right? This isn't like a massive proposal. I'm not the proposal writing guy. So just wait, wait. Do it when you get back from your trip or whatever you're doing.
Oh, hell, do it now.
Wise words from Sai. Wise words from Sai. All right, Todd,
I have-
why
I
do
have
we,
no-
why do certain clients of yours want it to drop before the end of the year on December 21st? Scrooges.
Okay, I have, first of all, I have no sympathy for people who are whining about like holidays. Okay, like first and foremost,
Tough crowd around here.
yeah,
Get it
yeah,
together.
yeah. There is no empathy for me ever. It's like it's business. It's nothing personal. Okay, it's business. Like, look, they gave you a deadline. Whine about it, sure. Bid it, don't bid it. I don't care. The government doesn't care either. They're going to get a lot of bids. Okay.
Great.
And they could pull the crap that NITAC did and just kept pushing it and pushing it. But like, I don't see them doing that. That's not the GSA way. Secondly, the draft did not dramatically change from last year. So the September draft isn't, it's set, okay? Like there's not gonna be like some major changes. And like I said, go in a prime, go in a loan. That, you know, whether or not you team or don't team, that doesn't change the fact that if you're priming, the basic requirements are going to be the same. So I know companies now that have already gone into pink team. Some have gone into red team. Like there's no reason for you to not have this done before Thanksgiving. Okay, go do this now. Okay, and if you bid Oasis and you did all this other stuff, and if you're a part of the SB4 or Piat, you know, like debacle, you got your shit together already anyway. So just, you know, slap on a new header, footer, you know, whatever. Update some, you know, like put a placeholder for your FPDS reports, you know, highlight all your statements of work, you know, get your home in order. Like it doesn't matter. And here's the thing, if you release it now and there's a ton of things that you're not happy with, it gives them more time to like answer those questions and possibly fix it, right? I don't anticipate that that's going to be the case, but like, why truncate things and make things harder and crash the schedule when it's really unnecessary? And do you really want to do this at the beginning of the year? I don't. I'd rather like end my year and be like, I'm done. Get your BMP dollars done and over with, and then close out the year and move on to something else and start your strategy for how you're going to market the damn thing.
Well
Off
said.
my soapbox.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it with popcorn. Martin, anything out of you? Or are you good?
No, I would echo that. I mean, we, as Ton said, we saw very little change. You know, just things around, you know, the edges here in terms of changes that they made, some clarity that they made. They'll make a few more tweaks and some clarity pieces to it, but I do not see drastic changes to the way this proposal is going to roll out. You can already identify your projects. You can already get all the documentation against it. It's not difficult. You could have 90% of your proposal ready to go before December the 21st, and you should, in my opinion, if you're really going to go after this, you really should be there, because if you're not, it's just you're going to be floundering. You're going to be constantly. It's going to be like, oh, can I just change this teaming partner to get this point or this or that? And you put your proposal at much bigger risk when you get into that. I know we saw some of that specifically in CIS before. They were just constant changes, and some of that was because the government just kept changing the instructions. But yeah, we know what's going to be in this proposal, and you can move forward now in terms of putting your response together. I think the government, you know, in that last Q&A, they were trying to say, and they even put out a survey and tried to get people's feedback on it, or industry feedback on it. Do you want it before Christmas or do you want it after? And I don't know what they finally got at that, or what their final response was, but they did ask. But they specifically said if it comes before Christmas, you're going to get more time. If it comes after Christmas, you're going to get less time to put it together. So
what I'm hearing is no matter what the due date is already set in stone in their heads, and it's like, this is it no matter what. And basically your takeaway is suck it up, buttercup, put in, let's go. You should be, as Martin says, you should be 90% done. Let's go. All right, so I know that we have some questions and I want to make sure that we address them on the webinar. I know that we should be wrapping up, and honestly, I'm like, oh my God, we still have to talk more about teaming and more about what will work and what won't. Meg, keep me honest here so that I make sure that we're answering as many as possible, so that I've got everything. First thing I've got is, how can past performance be shared across pools amongst different teams? Ooh, dicey getting into that other discussion. For example, SDVOSB and small biz member also teams with another only small bidder. Since we plan to bid as an SDVOSB and small pools, can we use our past performance on both teams? Did you guys get that?
Yeah, you're going to have to be very careful here. And this is what we were talking about earlier. When it comes to those projects, those volume 2 projects, those relevant experience projects, emerging technology projects, that project, whatever project that you're putting forward, cannot show up in any other proposal within that pool. Okay?
At all.
At all. If it is, it's that project is eliminated. And the government specifically says that it's the offerer's responsibility to make sure that they've vetted this properly with their teaming partners if people are trading projects. That project could be used in another pool. It just cannot show up in the same pool more than once. Where this will be tricky is there will be people that are going to be submitting both in the SDVOSB pool and maybe in multiple pools. And that would potentially mean you cannot submit the same proposal in every pool unless the team is just completely locked together that way. So that one project per pool should never be, you can only have one project in one pool, should not show up anywhere else in any other proposal for that specific pool.
I think that's going to be like the main thing here, right? Like
and this,
in terms of key takeaway.
Yeah, this came from
the struggle.
Yeah, this came from Oasis. From when Oasis SB last came out, and then it got protested. When the government brought it back out after the protest and went through they canceled the proposal, put it back out. They specifically changed that rule because they saw so much horse trading of projects. They specifically put things into very specific pools, and we're seeing it again here.
May have used that strategy, perhaps. Saying.
Perhaps.
All right, I got one more question here, and then please put in your last and final questions, and I'm sure that we won't address all of them, so we'll do our best, and we also will provide you a couple of things in outreach. So regarding, this is a follow-up to the kind of previously confusing one, regarding the CTA question that we kind of had, and we're like, we need more information. Basically, the company is a small business. They're considering getting other small businesses to band together as subcontractors. Together, they qualify for Polaris, but individually, that person's company won't qualify alone. So does it still make sense? Is that a good strategy? Or should we tell this person, hey, go get on other people's teams? Just curious.
I don't think we have enough information to really advise on
so if you can pull together everybody of like-minded statuses,
it depends on what it is. Remember, like qualifying for a contract is different than winning a contract, right?
Indeed.
So you have to first qualify as a team, right? So what's your teaming construct that you're establishing? Is it a prime sub CTA relationship where this company in particular, whose small business is going to be a prime, everyone's a subcontractor? Then you can use all the other small businesses as far as relevant experience and past performances, you know, like the risk assessments and the rep and certs. If the small business does not have the systems, certs, clearances, and the financial information in 4 and 6 volumes, then out of that whole group of small businesses, I would pick the strongest of the group. So the strongest one should prime, and then the other small ones can be CTA members or subcontractors under those. But then again, you're going to have to be really careful scoring wise. So it's a number thing. So you're going to have to put together score sheets under different scenarios. Teams A, B, and C. If team A primes, this is what your score is based on, you know, like all the other, you know, prime only requirements. Team B, team C, you pick the stronger and the higher scoring ones, and that's the one that you would go with. But I don't think there's enough information to really answer that question.
All right. I'm sorry if we haven't helped you completely, whoever asked the question, but we've tried. Feel free to follow up with us on email. I've got another one that I really think is interesting. Does it make sense to prime in the small business pool, just like small business generic, right? And then sub to like an SDVOSB, a hub zone, and a woman owned, so that you're technically on, I guess, 4 teams, one of which you're priming. Assuming, of course, that you're keeping the past performance different. So you've got enough past performance that you can spread your eggs that way. Make sense? Not make sense?
I would think so.
Yeah.
You give
Yeah.
yourself the prime in the small business and you get a little bit extra for as a sub in the other ones. I
You
could
at
see
least
that
get a
working.
higher percentage win rate, right?
Or if you form a joint venture, then with the SDVOSB one, if it's just two of you, let's say, which it probably won't be, but if it's just the two of you, you could do 60% of the work. Whereas if you were a sub, you can only do 49%.
Interesting strategy. All right, next one, with regards to limitations on subcontracting. Do subs need to have previously performed on a contract with the prime? So this kind of gets back to that past performance thing. Or will merely being on a current contract with the prime be sufficient? That goes to that, hey, I'm going to give you a task order for $1,000 and call it done. Thoughts?
So the limitation on subcontracting component is specific to the HubZone pool, this SDVOSB pool, and the woman-owned small business pool. And what they're saying there, or what they want there, how you get those points is, however you've constructed the team, whatever, they're going to go back to those 5 relevant experience projects that you submit in volume 2. And if the company executing that project is similarly situated up to for at least 3, because you have to be 50% and there's 5 projects, so 3 or more are in that similar situation, then you would get those points. So example, you're a woman-owned small business, you have another partner that's a woman-owned small business. Between the two of you, at least 3 of the 5 projects are coming from those 2 companies, then you would get those points because you would have 50% or higher than 50% of those 5 projects in that specifically situated or similar situated pool. That's how it currently reads to me. So.
Okay.
But that's a separate set of points from the have you teamed together points, the risk mitigation points. It's in the same volume, but there's 2 separate areas of points.
Clear as mud, but okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, I've got 2 more questions, and then I'm going to ask the panel to be thinking about your final thoughts. And that could be something that you think people should absolutely remember to do or absolutely remember to not do on this bid. So I'll phrase it that way just to kind of get clarity and to make it to the point. Will CTAs allow small businesses to team with large businesses? I think we already said this, right? So allowed, but it only makes sense to us in a mentor-protege relationship. Doesn't make sense anywhere else, right? Because you can't claim it for the points. True?
Yeah, for points, it has to be a mentor in a joint venture. No other scenario.
And if you're not getting the points, who cares?
Right.
Don't dilute the team. Who cares? All right, one more. Can you speak to any more award risks to a small business JV that adds subcontractors, particularly looking at the relationship between all businesses and certifications, not just based on current solicitation, but any potential modifications?
Are they asking, can a JV have subcontractors?
I don't know, but can it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, well, yes, as a general thing, yes, you could. As far as points, it's not entirely clear here. I think it would be reasonable based on the RFP for GSA to say, look, it's one or the other. And if you're bidding as a joint venture, it's only the members that we're going to count for all kinds of stuff, not your subcontractors. I could make the argument that it doesn't expressly say that. And so if you had a joint venture, you could use all the members. And if you had subcontractors that were similarly situated to the joint venture, you could use those as well. Or were small, every sub was small. I think that's risky because it's probably one or the other.
Okay.
As far as points.
All right. I'm getting ready to go around the horn for final thoughts, but I have 2 things I want to plant in our GovMates seeds here. One is the financial capability or commitment letter. If you need that, which I believe it is a responsibility for the prime, by all means, reach out to us. We're going to be sending a survey after this, and we will ask you specifically that and ask you to give us our email address, and we can hook you up with that. The second part is cybersecurity. So all things for the supply chain risk management assessment. So we definitely have a strong position on this in terms of a partnership with GovMates for our teams and our folks. So if you need some help on this area, we've got a great solution that is available to our GovMates, and that too will be part of our survey, and we're happy to connect the dots with someone who can help. All right, so final thoughts on what absolutely to do or what absolutely not to do. Anyone want to go first? I will call on you all. All right, Tom, hit it.
To do?
Or not to do, whichever, one or the other.
Well, read the RFP. To do.
Great.
I'm going to take that one off the table. Don't forget to do multiple quality compliance reviews. So color teams are going to be paramount. That's what we do here at Intellect really well, and that's how we've supported a lot of the other, vehicles where we may not be developing the proposals, but we do the compliance checks. You need someone who really truly understands and can check across, because there's a lot of moving pieces, there's a lot of parts. And I'll tell you, being the proposal manager for a lot of different bids, we all make mistakes. And so we all need to be checked. And so it's not a personal thing. It's just compliance, compliance, compliance. That is going to be everyone's downfall on this one.
Yeah, it's not the other stuff. All right, Martin.
I will reiterate the compliance piece. This is a compliance exercise. It is not a heavy writing proposal. So, be prepared to check your compliance multiple times. And as with any good proposal, review. But what you should do is you should be putting your proposal together now if you are going to do this. It's almost getting to the point that it's too late to form teams, because, as I said, this has been out since the early part of the year, and a lot of people have already been talking about teaming. They've been strategizing about teaming. They've been looking at their projects and running them through the information that we had in the first draft and what we definitely have now in the updated L&M. So the proposal should be starting if it hasn't already.
Good advice. Sai?
I'd say legal side, like lock down your team. So whatever your teaming agreements are, your joint venture, whatever it is that you're doing, make sure you've got exclusivity at least to the pool piece of it with the language about damages and other things, so that you're not left out in the cold. I had people in CIS before try to leave teams literally at the 11th hour. I was on the phone at 11 p.m. with a client. And a key team member tried to leave and jump to go to another team where they get a better deal. So you don't want to be stuck like that with no time to replace people.
No, that's good advice. So exclusivity, at least by pool, and the whole damages clause, which all of us overlook. We're all like, no, it's the teaming agreement. Nobody cares, but that's a good one. That's a really big one, actually. That's the little nugget, I think, out of this webinar that nobody expected to get, but that's something you need to go back and look at. Okay. On behalf of GovMates, I want to thank everyone, including Siri, who just went off on my on my watch. I apologize. We will be sending out a survey afterwards where we will give you an opportunity to ask any other questions, see if there's anything else. We'll follow up with folks. Like I said, we have people who can help you with the financial commitment letter. We've got people who can help you with the cyber supply chain risk management aspect of it, which I think is becoming more and more important, especially now that CMMI has gone sideways. It's a whole nother topic, a whole nother discussion. I want to thank everybody and our panelists, especially. You've been amazing. So thank you for all the great nuggets and all the good intel. And happy bidding. Hopefully this helped at least clarify some bid strategies for you and get you in the right place. As always, if you need a teaming partner, to Martin's point, kind of getting late, but if you need a teaming partner, hit us up. We will do our best to see who's out there and who's still looking and hunting, and we'll keep you in mind. So thank you all for your participation, and have a good rest of your afternoon. Happy bidding.
everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.